How to break 80, the advanced lecture. First thing we're going to dive into, no time wasted, because 80 breakers don't waste time. We're going to get into dispersion and aim point equals a target. What does it mean? You hear a lot about people talking about the target, talking about aiming and things like that, but nobody really gives you a definition on what to do. The key to understand is, anytime you're trying to break 80 is to understand yourself. And part of that is understanding your dispersion pattern with every club. That can be a driver, could be something like this. That's your pattern, mostly on this side or sometime on that side. But you need to understand from where you were aiming, how many yards each way does that driver go? So if you favor more on the right side with a bad shot and your maximum is, let's say, a 50-yard slice, and you rarely go left, sometimes you might pull it about 10 yards left. This is difficult information to gather. You may have to just go with experience over time, observing how far off your target you were. But eventually you'll start to understand that which side you favor more, maybe 70% this side, 30% this side. Now you have a dispersion pattern of your driver. 50 yards to the right, 10 yards to the left. That means when you're aiming at something, you're not just going, let's say you have a fairway like this, you're not just going to aim straight up the chute. You might need to aim more toward the left side so that if it does go left and there's no danger here, you're still okay. But the majority of your shot shape is going to fade to the right in this 50-yard zone. So whatever you're aiming at needs to maximize the dispersion of your shot. And this happens for every single club, whether it's a driver or whether it's a 7-iron. If you go hit a 7-iron at a pin, say your pin is the target, go hit, I don't know, 10. Maybe you can find out on the range. You can go do some work of your own. Hit 20 balls. You hit a 7-iron at this exact target, the right distance for your 7-iron. Where do the balls end up? You start to understand a pattern and work out really on average, how far right you're going to go and how far left you're going to go. Potentially your aim point might not be going straight at the pin, might not be middle of the green, might not be whatever you think it is. A lot of us are pin hunting, and this is one of the problems in break 80. You can't pin hunt unless you're hitting a straight shot or you're taking into account your shot shape. And also your dispersion pattern. So if you look at this and most of the balls are ending up on the right side or right hand of the fringe there, and only a few balls on the left, you're pretty good to aim left of the pin, somewhere over here. So that when this dispersion happens, it moves over closer to the hole. And you don't short side yourself in disaster here. So you need to understand the dispersion of your shots with every single club and then make adjustments for your aim point to be able to hit the target. If you're gonna be hitting draws a lot of the time, and sometimes your duck hook goes 40 yards and then a big slice goes 50 yards, that's a 90-yard dispersion. It's unplayable. You can't play that because you have no idea which way it's going and how far it's going offline. So you can't play that. You have to go work on the club with a professional. Now, what you're going to start to notice is your longer clubs are going to start to have less dispersion. You're going to go from 90-yard down to maybe a 60-yard dispersion, maybe even a 40-yard dispersion left and right away from your target. And you need to keep track of that. As you play, you'll start to get more confidence and you'll start to adjust your aim point. So let's say you have an aim point of this tree down the fairway, and you know that if you hit it at that tree, it's going to fade and maybe end up on the right side. Let's say your dispersion stops being so wide, you can aim it at that tree and you're going to end up more in the middle of the fairway. Oftentimes you might have to adjust your aim point, but that's going to help you to stay in play and set yourself up better positions to hit better approaches, and then using that same dispersion on your approaches to hit better approach shots and leave yourself easier chips by avoiding the short side. Now with the aim point and the dispersion, I'm going to show you in a video how to make your own course guides using Google Earth. It's very easy, and you can start to measure at your distances of carry and rollout how wide certain areas of the golf course are, and that may actually help you adapt your strategy instead of just bombing it or hitting it short, and actually finding out potentially longer is wider, potentially shorter is wider. The next key to breaking 80, and 100% the biggest downfall of most people getting stuck in the 80 to 90 something range, is understanding lie conditions. Your place where you play golf will be unique to you. I can't exactly tell you all the different things needed because now I'm playing on tropical grass, whereas before in life I was playing on cool weather grasses. So I've played every kind of grass there is, but wherever you are, you need to begin understanding the type of the lie. So we're going to talk about fairway lies, you're going to talk about sand in the bunker, you're going to talk about tight, you're going to talk about like hard pan, rough, etc. You're going to have all the different types of lies. And inside the type of the lie is the condition of the lie. How is it sitting? Is it sitting up? Is it sitting down? Is it sitting in a depression? Is it sitting on a bit of a like weird mud clog? All those kind of things on top of the type of grass you play. So you're going to have grass, you're going to have quality of the lie. And then underneath that, you're going to have soil conditions. Now this is a very complicated topic, of course, but you want to begin understanding how to read the grass, the quality of the lie, and the soil underneath. Every shot is going to have a different interaction with the bottom of your club when you play it. You'll see in some videos, maybe 160 yards, I'll be hitting a 6-iron for some reason. Then on the flip side, I might be hitting a 9-iron from 175. That's all dependent on the lie. That's dependent on the lie. Sometimes you have a flyer lie. Sometimes you have a lie where your club's going to dig and it's going to make a pop-up shot. All these things come into play, and it starts with soil, the quality of the lie, and the grass. You have to become a proficient grass reader and then understand what that will do to the shot and the club you'd like to hit, because that can change the shot from being simple, straightforward, to being a completely different type of shot when you begin to understand it. You need to do these things by experimenting. So when you're on the course and you get into situations where you look at something and the same thing you always do doesn't work anymore, or doesn't work one time, you hit another one there, you hit another one there, and you start to understand it doesn't work. And you do that with slope as well. You know, you're going to have an upslope, you're going to have a downslope, you're going to have a side slope, ball above the feet, ball below the feet. These are things you need to start taking into account how you react to. It's very unique to you. To some people, you have to do certain things, and other people find that doesn't work for them. But when you become conscious of this, you start to create a bigger arsenal of shots. And that's the key. The result of this, learning the type of lie, the condition of the lie, the grass, the quality of the soil, interaction, you start to understand more about shots you need to counteract all the variables that go into a single shot. When you grow this arsenal of shots, you begin to get below 80 very regularly because you can adapt all the time. The key when we do lie conditions is that we look at something and we take what we can do when you're not breaking 80. The biggest problem you're going to find is that you're doing things you can't do. You're going with what you think is the ideal shot. The ideal shot, you know, you're sitting there and you've got this huge bunker and you've got a shot here on an upslope and the green's above you and the pin is cut 4 yards onto the green. What do you have to do? Well, you have to open that 60-degree right up, huge, make it land on the front fringe, and boom, you're going to hold the chip. But what if you don't have that shot, which many of us don't have that shot? You have to take into account the lie of the ball. What can you do in the arsenal you currently have to get that ball on the green anywhere to get a putt, instead of taking a shot you don't know, chance of leaving it in the bunker, chance of teething it over the back of the green, because you're doing things you don't know how to do. You have to take what you can do in that moment, understand the result you're going to get, and then reconcile the result in your mind and hit the shot. Once you can do that, you're breaking 80. I promise you. That is so key. And we're going to get onto that next. This was just a rough primer. I'm not going over wind and elevation. At this stage, getting low 80s, you should start understanding wind and elevation changes. This is key. This is the biggest difference between an 85, an 86, 88, and getting into the 70s, lie conditions. When you become an expert at reading grass and understanding how difficult the shot is based on the lie condition, that's when you become a 70 golfer. 100% the most important. So we've taken the aim point, the dispersion, the lie condition. The lie condition will determine the dispersion. The lie condition will determine your aim point. The lie condition will determine the shot you play. The difficulty of that shot needs to be understood. At this stage of the game, you have to begin understanding how difficult shots are so you know when to go and when to get the ball into a location that you can play a great shot. We can't always be perfect, and if you think that breaking 80 is about perfect, glamorous golf, you're on the wrong track, and that will stop you from breaking 80. Because this is not a glamorous situation. As unglamorous as breaking 90 is, breaking 80 is even less glamorous because we're trying to remove junk. We're trying to remove waste from our game. We're not trying to make birdie after birdie after birdie. They will happen, but we're trying to minimize doubles and bogeys. And we do that by making a clear mental image of the shot. Let's add in there, clear. How do we make a clear mental image of a shot? Lie, arsenal, difficulty, and you have your aim point from your dispersion. You can now create a clear image in your mind of what you expect to happen. In any given moment, you have to have this image in your mind so that you don't create a situation where you're going for perfection and then fail, because you're setting yourself up to fail. If you set yourself up for success, you create more relaxed shots, more stress-free shots. When you understand the lie, okay, this is what's going to happen. These are the shots that I have in the situation because it's a very difficult shot. Can I realistically get this to 3 feet? Probably not. Can Tiger? Yes, he can. But Tiger's Tiger. Phil Mickelson's Phil Mickelson. You are someone shooting 83. So if I get it to, X, is X good? Yes, that's good for me in this situation. In the situation I find myself with the arsenal that I have at hand, that's a good shot. Then reconcile that. See that shot now. Don't see that crazy shot of a professional. You can't see that. You have to see clearly what you can do. Match up your arsenal to the difficulty and the lie. And then once you have that, you can discover your aim point in order to pull off the shot. There are some PGA Tour stats that are going to help to put your mind at ease at how imperfect you can be and shoot a great score. From 3 feet, you want to be doing 100%. 5 feet, 80%. 8 feet, 50%. 10 feet, you're looking at about 35%. So that means when you're putting your big pressure on yourself to make 8-footers and 10-footers, yes, we want to make them. But if you're at elite level, you're making 50% of your 8-footers. That's elite level. The best golfers in the world are making 50% of their 8-footers and probably 1 in 3 of their 10-footers. The rest beyond this is basically a 2-putt. You want to understand these parts and get good at these things. You want to have this level from 5 feet. You want to have this level from 3 feet. You can relax a little bit. Try and make 50% of your 8-footers if you can, but if you don't, understand that's elite golf. Look at the proximity statistics. You can check these all out on PGA Tour stats. I'll give you a link in the description. Proximity after hitting from a certain distance. You'll find stats in there from under 100, from 100 to 125, 125 to 150. You'll see every stat is tracked of these pros, and then you'll begin to understand how far they hit the ball from the cup after their shots. A lot of people may think with a wedge in hand, these pros are sticking it to 6 feet on average. And you may start putting that pressure on yourself, because remember, we're making a clear image of what the shot should look like. And when you don't do it, you feel all disappointed. But when you look at the proximity from 100 to 125 of professionals, it's probably something like 18 feet or 19 feet, something like that. So that's 6 or 7 yards from the pin, from 100 to 125 yards. Now, if that's your expectation to be 6 to 10 feet from the cup, that's over expectation, because we're talking about the best players in the world. Green in regulation, how many times do they hit the green from a certain distance? We might be surprised to find from 100 yards, you might find it's only 75 to 80%. They do miss the greens from 100 yards 2 out of 10 times, and you're allowed to as well. That's just the reality. Now, if you want to equalize these, okay, because it's very easy to fall into the trap of looking at distance versus distance in a PGA Tour Pro versus us. So let's say we have, for example, a 100 to 125, and let's say 125 to 150 shot, just for argument's sake. These are the brackets that they break them down on the site. let's say from this distance they're hitting it to 18 feet, let's say this one they're hitting it to 30 feet, and let's say from here they're hitting it to 40 feet. Just for example. These are very good distances for the professionals, but in these categories, what are they hitting from here? This is like a sand wedge to pitching wedge. This is like a pitching wedge up to like an 8 iron. This is 8 iron up to probably a 6 iron. So now what you can do is see that what do you hit from here? So from here you may be hitting pitching wedge to 8 iron. Here you might go 8 iron up to 6 iron. Here you might go 6 iron to 4 hybrid. What are they hitting? 8 iron, 6 iron. They hit to 40 feet, right? This is the pro's 8 iron to 6 iron. This is your 8 iron to 6 iron equalized. And now you can understand the distance you'd hit the ball from the hole to be comparable. Not the 30 feet they do from that distance. Now we're looking at club versus club 40 feet. And I don't mean you want to hit it to 40 feet and be like a professional. I'm saying if you hit an 8 iron or 6 iron to 40 feet from the hole and you complain, that's crazy because that's a damn fine shot equalized for club usage. Same as here. So instead of looking at 8 feet for a professional with a pitching wedge and an 8 iron in hand, see? Instead of looking at that distance-wise, 18 feet, now we're looking at equalized club, and that's 30 feet. So if you hit a pitching wedge to 8 iron to 30 feet to the hole, you've done extremely well, and you can take pride in that shot because that's what a pro would have done with the same club in hand. The key to breaking 80 is this clear mental image, and that mental image will bring about some phenomenon known as the joy of missing out. And the joy of missing out in golf is the key. You miss out on all the drama, you miss out on the crap shots, you miss out on the hero shots that are actually a euphemism for stupid shots. You just do what you can do, and you miss out on the tension, and you take joy in the fact that you are not that guy hitting a shot OB because you couldn't think with your brain. Because there's no magic pills here. There's no magic pills. It's purely about discipline in the process we've talked about and discipline of emotion. A lot of people will just talk about stats, data, blah, blah, blah. Remember, with that stuff, it's fine, but it's all on paper. What we talked about is mental images, the lie, the difficulty of the shot, and the arsenal of shots you have to match that. Nothing in stats and data can tell you about that, and even if it does, all the stats and data depend on those things. So when you look at this, we are still emotional creatures. We can't run on stats and data. We are emotional beings, especially at the handicap level golf. We're not pros, we're not robots who can just hit the same shot time after time, no. But we need to have discipline in our process and discipline in our emotional control. If you want to play golf and have fun, the most important thing you can do is emotional control. This is the chart that proves it. More emotional control you have, the lower the score. It's an inversely relational graph, and we will see that here you have the 120 person. Why? Because his emotional control is not great, but his score is very high. Here we have the 100 breaker. Here we have the 90 breaker. Here's the 80 breaker. And somewhere down here, as this gets close, that's going to be the professional. And when we talk about emotional control, we don't talk about being stoic only. All we mean is we can transmute the energy we are creating in being frustrated, being angry, being upset, and we can transmute that into power. And by power, I mean focus, into going deeper into your process. When you can do that and get angry with yourself, angry with the world, and focus that angry energy into your process, you begin to get an emotional control that brings your scoring down, not to pro level, but somewhere around here, 80. And if you can do that, you're ahead of the majority of golfers in the world. Because the emotional control is what creates the negative death spirals. It creates the hero shots. It creates the wrong aim points. It creates going for shots you don't need to go for in order to break 80. This is a channel for scorers and players. We want to score. And the joy of missing out on all that other crap, to be able to have emotional control, stay in a process, stay centered instead of losing it and being 100, 110, 120 shooter. Mark my words, the first day you do this and the first day you go out there and you're in control, of your emotions, of your shots, of your process, of your aim point, of the image you create of the shot in your mind, of the lies, you become so calm, so relaxed that people look up to you and want to be you, like me. There are stats we want to track, and I'm going to make a video as well on how to analyze your scorecard in order to get your scores lower by being present in the game and understanding what you're doing and looking back on what you're doing to find patterns in your game to either double down on or to remove from your game. But there are some stats I like to track, and I've always done this. And these stats are par 5 bogeys, because at break 80 level, we don't want to be bogeying par 5s. We want to target these for birdies or pars guaranteed. So you keep track of that and then find out, with all of these, is the why. Why did it happen? Think about the why. Very often it's a decision-making process. Very often it's about stepping outside of your process. It's about being emotional. It's about being not a calm, not a transmuting energy break 80 player. Inside 150 and inside 100 yards, I like to keep track of how many shots it took and why. Was it the lie? Was it not my understanding of the lie? Was it potentially not taking into account the wind? Sometimes these things happen, but sometimes you can pick up a pattern of what's really happening. Botch saves, easy save. So when you have a really easy chip, right straight up the green, not that far, you know you can make this, and you botch it. I like to keep track of why that happened. 3 putts, you want 0 3 putts, of course. You might make one around, that's okay. But you want 0 3 putts. And how do we fix that? Well, you go practice. Double chips, of course. We never want a double chip, we want a gear. Remember, gear. How many OB and how many hero shots I avoided. This one is not really talked about, because whenever you take on a hero shot, you only remember the good ones and you don't remember the 99 other bad ones that end in total catastrophe. So if I can avoid the hero shots, do a proper chip out, hit a shot I know how to hit, that's a prideful moment. And those are the things that are going to keep you on track. If you track these things, you use all the things I've talked about in this video and the previous video, you're going to be so good at breaking 80. It's going to be a joke. Let me know in the comments below just how much you slashed 80 by following this easy game. We need to optimize our equipment as best we can. Of course, you can place off-the-rack equipment and break 80. I did it. But as I learn more about golf and seeing the biggest strides in the game being in playing the correct shaft and having the correct wedges, these are the top 2 things for me. If you're playing at a certain swing speed with a certain tempo, a different shaft in your driver, in your fairway wood, even in your irons can make sense in order to get a more consistent ball flight or a tighter dispersion of your shots. I was playing a shaft that was way too flexible back in the day. Even though I was like getting toward breaking 80, and then I eventually broke 80, it became so much easier to continually break 80 when I put stiff shafts into my irons. I was playing regular because I had no idea about the shafts and how important they were. The shaft I had in my driver, first time I ever had a custom shaft, the pro gave me an extra stiff 70-gram shaft because of my swing speed and tempo that dropped me down to a scratch handicap from a 6, just because I could get the ball in play. Now that's something to look at, particularly for your longer clubs, but it can even be incorrect in your irons. Wedges, you have to have a good gapping with your wedges. Now what I mean by good gapping, because break 80, break 90, break 100 is different. Break 90 and 100, you don't really need a good gapping. You need to be able to use 2 wedges well enough. But here, because to break 80, you need to hit the ball a little further. We're going to talk about the shots you need, but one of them is a 225-yard plus shot off the tee. If you're not hitting a 225 plus off the tee, you're going to have to play really short tees to break 80, or you're going to have a tough time breaking 80 from like 6,500, 6,600 yards. And the thing with the wedges is, as you hit it further, you're going to have more wedge shots in. You're going to need to have a lot more of these finesse shots. But a big problem people have with the wedges is they don't understand bounce and the loft and the grind. Now, when you have a loft on the wedge that's 54, 58, and a 50 degree, so you've got 4 degrees between each thing, doesn't necessarily mean in the conditions you play that the wedges are going to have even gapping. It's okay if the gap is, you're comfortable with it. So if your 54 goes 100, your 50 degree goes 125, and your 58 goes 92, there's an 8-yard gap and then like a 15-yard gap. Okay, that's fine. But if you want to get it more tight, you want to get things more evenly spaced, the bounce of the club plus the loft are going to interact with the turf a certain way. All three of these things can combine to actually make you play 48, 52, 58, something like that. But you want to get your wedges checked out by somebody local who knows the conditions, because the bounce will also affect your shot depending on ground conditions. So if you're playing firm conditions, you can't have high bounce wedges, because as soon as you have a wedge, when you look at a wedge, it looks like this, and it's got this little thing at the back here. Now the angle between the ground and the leading edge is the bounce. Now you can imagine if you hit the bottom of the firm turf with this bounce here, it's going to bounce off the turf and it's going to blade your ball a lot. So if you've got high bounce wedges on firm turf, you're at a disadvantage. Sand, not much sand in the bunker, wet sand, hard sand, big bounce wedges like this, you can't open the face, you can't do anything. It's going to teeth it across the green. High bounce, soft conditions. Firm conditions, low bounce. You're going to have to get this checked out, because this will become a huge advantage for chipping, pitching, bunker shots, where you're going to save the most shots to break 80. Very important. Lofts and the club head that you're using, particularly for driver, a lot of people potentially are using too low a loft. You know, they're going 8 degrees, 9 degrees, and potentially losing a lot of distance if your swing speed is not fast enough. A lot of people could be playing 10.5 to 12 degree drivers, and that might help you to get that 225 yard carry instead of just a 200 yard carry with a low lofted club head. You've got to get it checked out, because a lot of things with the shaft, the loft, and the type of head, because you get low spinning heads and you get high spinning heads. So you want to get your driver or tee club especially looked at for shaft, loft, and the head. It may be wrong for you, it may be right for you, and the guy may be able to tweak it for you. That's going to be an important club for you. Even if it's a 3-wood, check it out. The loft may be a 14 to 15 degree 3-wood is too low. Maybe if you're hitting 16 to 19 degrees, what happens is with a slower swing speed, you may get more carry instead of, and then a little bit of rollout, instead of a low lofted 3-wood that carries less and then rolls out less as well. This often happens for slower swing speed. The putter lie angle can be very important as well if you're not putting well. This is just something you want to get checked out, because the putting game is so important that you want to make sure that the lie angle is correct. A lot of people may be toe up or toe down, or not seeing correctly with their eyes lining up to the putt. There's a great video by Derek Uyeda that I'll link, and I've got a video with Eric, my coach, coming, which is pretty similar to this. He has similar ideas, and I'll link it in the bottom in the description, and you can learn about putting there too. Just a little bit about lie angle and eye angle, things like that. These are going to be very important parts of your game. Been watching a lot of Not a Scratch Golfer. A friend of mine, Adam, he's an 80 breaker. Not all the time, but he breaks 80 quite a lot. And he's been mentioning the 175 yard shot. And this kind of thing, there's so many tools available to you as a golfer, as a good golfer, to hit the 175 yard shot, even with not much swing speed. So for me, this is like an 8 or 7 iron. For some people, this may be a 6 hybrid, a 5 hybrid, a 5 wood or a 7 wood. Whatever it is, you need to go and find the thing that's going to give you 175, 180, 185, something like that, so that you can hit those par 3s more confidently. You can get the ball, around the green for a chip, because a lot of the time on 420 yard holes, 410 yard, 430 yard holes, you're going to leave yourself 175 quite a lot. Sometimes even on holes like 350, where you've hit like a sky, or you've hit a worm burner, you're going to leave yourself a longer approach. You don't want to panic, you don't want to bash anything beyond your limits, so find yourself a very comfy club that goes 175. This is going to revolutionize your game. We don't have to be pinpoint accurate, but you want to get that dispersion with it down as much as you can, make it kind of have a very small dispersion pattern, and something that you don't have to smash. So many tools. Get this one, it's going to help you. You just have to get it near the green, allow a chip and a putt.